What's up, weirdos? This is Abigail. I'm your host for the ManicPixieWeirdo podcast, and we are joined today with Steven. Um, and he's here to talk about his relationship with guns, kind of a part two follow up with my relationship with guns. So we're going to get someone who is a lot more knowledgeable about the subject of guns than I am.
Awesome.
So say hi.
Hey, Abigail. It's awesome to meet you. This is actually our first time talking, so I guess you don't know a ton about me, and I don't know a ton about you. So hopefully we can kind of figure some things out.
Yeah, hopefully. That's kind of the idea. So, here on the Manic Pixie Weirdo, we talk about our relationships just with like all different kinds of stuff. And I did sort of a little like my relationship with guns, and I have a very limited knowledge of guns. Like I've shot like shotguns and like a couple of guns when I was like a kid, like at the shooting range with my parents, or like I shot skeet at camp. But they are very scary to me. And it wasn't until like my husband bought a gun, then we went to the shooting range and shot his gun, that I was like, whoa, this is like a lot of power. Like this just seems like very, it was just really scary because it just seemed like, wow, this is like a lot more power and responsibility than like I sort of signed up for. It was different than when I was a kid because there were like adults there, and I like all of a sudden now I was the adult. So
yeah. I did. Unfortunately, I wasn't familiar with your show until you reached out to me. So I did, go through a little bit and see some of the topics you had done and kind of listen through to get an idea of what it would be like. I did not listen to that one. I don't know if that was available at the time. I guess it didn't jump out at me if it was there.
Yeah, no, it just got posted. So like,
okay.
Don't worry.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess, pretend like I haven't listened to that one yet because I haven't, but that's, your story's interesting because mine is honestly very similar. Growing up, I live in the South in the United States, and
I'm here in Texas. So
okay,
South,
yeah,
so, yeah,
yeah, you too, yeah. So I'm in Georgia, but I was born in Alabama, and I come from a very conservative and religious household, and one thing that we were brought up in was Boy Scouts, and shooting sports is a huge component of that, and not for any reason other than I think really just tradition. It was one of those things. Boy Scouts was started, I believe, around the time of the First World War ish, and so it was kind of like the organization was teaching a lot of things that were based in military, like first aid and obviously shooting and camping and all that kind of stuff. It was like a military for kids kind of thing. And so for us, we got started really early. I think like the first graders shoot BB guns, and then at some point in late elementary or early middle school, we were shooting 22 caliber rifles, which for people that don't know, it's generally the weakest actual gun. If you want to talk about things that are like, is this a gun versus not a gun? A BB gun legally is not considered a firearm in that, you could just pick it up at any store or buy it online and ship it to your house. But a 22 caliber rifle or pistol is a firearm that is registered, or it's produced by a registered manufacturer of firearms and who are accountable to the government. So, and then I remember when I was 14, we went skeet shooting, which you mentioned. In skeet shooting, we were shooting 12 gauge and 20 gauge shotguns. And that, I was a really skinny, really little kid. I was like 110 pounds when I was 14, and that thing kicked my butt. I mean,
yeah. That's one of those things that's definitely, for those listeners that aren't familiar with that. There is a recoil, and like, I think the first time that I shot, I was like, I think I just got bruised or like something, when it like, just because it'll just hit you right in that shoulder, and it's just,
a lot of people when they're shooting shotguns for the first time, they A, they don't anticipate that level of recoil, but B, they also aren't shooting in a way that allows their body to receive it properly. And so, if you have that gun held out either too, not at the right place, horizontal and vertical on your body, or if it's not, you're not positioned correctly, or if you're holding it, some people hold it out away from them because they don't realize they're supposed to pull it into their shoulder. And so it comes back and really, really hits you harder than it would otherwise.
Yeah, it's not like the movies. It's not like the movies.
And of course, there's all kinds of different shotgun loads. And depending on what is in the shotgun shell, it'll have more or less energy that gets transmitted back to the shooter, which results in maybe a lot of bruising versus nothing. It really depends.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I've only shot a couple of shotguns and like skeet stuff, but I was, like at camp, or like the very few times that I went with my parents to the shooting range. But yeah, like I said, it wasn't until my husband bought a gun that I was like, I should probably like get some knowledge.
So what is this gun that he bought that kind of put the I don't know, was really awe-inspiring for you of the power of it?
Well, I'm not entirely sure what like brand it is. It's a Glock. It's not a revolver, so that means that
Glock is a brand. They're a Austrian manufacturer, German or Austrian. Oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed for blanking on that. But anyway, no. European manufacturer of firearms.
Then no, I don't know if it's that. It's just not a revolver. I know that. I know that It's just not a revolver. It's a handgun. But I think it's a pistol, to be quite frank. I really don't know. But when I went, I held it in my hand, and the first shot, like the recoil on it was like, it just like there was a lot of it. And it I felt it didn't feel comfortable in my hand. It was very I felt very shaky and very it was heavy. I don't know if that had anything to do with the weight of the gun, or maybe it was the ammunition that we were shooting that was just too powerful. But I couldn't hit any the targets at the shooting range. Couldn't hit a thing. It was.
Do you know what caliber it is?
I think it's 9mm, maybe.
Okay. And was the whole gun made of metal, or did it have plastic parts?
No, yes, the whole gun was made of metal. Yes.
Okay, that's actually so a 9mm solid steel pistol. And was the barrel did it seem short, like it was for concealing, or kind of like a normal? Here, I'll show you two, and you tell me what it was closer to. So I have this is a full size.
It actually looks a lot like that.
And then
that first one.
This is that first subcompact. Okay. Yeah. So honestly, as far as handguns go, other than a 22 caliber, which you can shoot out of handguns, and there's no felt recoil whatsoever, especially if it's in a solid steel gun. But 9mm is kind of generally the next step up from that. And out of a full size steel gun, really the recoil on those is pretty manageable. So it's possible he was using a defensive ammunition versus a target shooting ammunition, but that's going to have a lot more energy in it that translates into felt recoil.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I like I said, I have very limited knowledge. I know very little.
Here, I have some. These are defensive rounds for that tiny gun, and they have a what's called a jacketed hollow point, and so the tip of hollowed out so that when they hit obviously they're designed for people. I'm not going to dress it up. That's what they're designed for.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not.
When they hit tissue, the end of it where it's hollowed out expands into kind of like petals, and that rather than going, so if a bullet goes all the way through a target, then whatever energy is left after it exits the target is not transferred into the target, and so there's less injury. Whereas if all of the energy is dumped into the target, which is what the expanding hollow point allows it to do, then all of the power, so to speak, ends up in the internal organs and all that.
Right.
And
okay.
Chance of stopping a potential threat.
Right.
That's the idea. behind it.
Right, absolutely. Okay, that's cool. I didn't know that. So,
But
okay. Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say for it's commonly recommended to practice with your defensive ammo if you are a person that has guns for self defense. But it's very expensive. Sometimes they're over $1 per round versus a comparable target shooting round might be 10 to 20 cents if it's not during a global pandemic and in a when all the ammunition is just skyrocketed.
Just gone.
But it's also they have a lot higher powder loads and oftentimes a lot heavier bullets, and both of those things result in a lot more felt recoil. So it's not as pleasurable to target shoot with because, as you experienced, when you're missing all over the place and you feel like the gun jump out of your hand, it's scary.
Yeah.
And it puts a lot of people off of the sport.
Yeah, I think that probably was the thing that I was just like, whoa, like this is like a lot. And even the person, I don't know if they were like the manager, like the person that like runs the shooting range that we were at or whatever, like even at one point came over and was like, okay, like let's try something different. And he, again, I don't remember what gun he gave me, but he let me use, it was the gun that I think it was his daughter's gun that like his daughter liked to shoot. Could not tell you what the difference was as far as like the make or the model or anything like that. But once he like came over and like showed me and like I was more comfortable with that gun. I don't know if it was simply because he said that his daughter liked it or if it just felt better in my hand. And I did feel like I actually had some control.
Yeah.
I was able to actually like hit stuff.
Yeah. And that's a great feeling, isn't it? I mean, the difference in being terrified at you feel like you're holding onto the end of a firework or a bomb or something.
Yeah.
Versus if you've ever like shot a bow and arrow or something, it's like you get the feeling of, okay, I am controlling a weapon and it's not controlling me, because it's not as scary. Or even something, stupid, like it's the difference in if you're using like a drill, everybody's like, you pretend the drill is a gun. It's what every single person does when they pick up a drill for the first time or for the 1,000th time. But if you have some kind of drill bit in there that is like really big and gangly and makes a lot of noise, like if you're using a grout mixer or something versus using just like a Phillips head screwdriver on it, it's a huge difference in your mindset. So.
Oh yeah, it gave me a little bit more, I guess, confidence. Fear still was kind of there of like I am in control of something that like has the potential to like fatally wound or like injure or kill somebody. But I did feel a little bit more comfortable once I didn't feel like the gun was, like you said, going to jump out of my hand or I was going to drop it and then it was going to misfire and something horrible was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how often that, like, I don't even know how sort of like relevant or not relevant, but like how justified that fear is.
Yeah. And that's honestly a healthy fear that I wonder if many people would think about. Nowadays, a lot of safety regulations have led to most pistols being drop safe. And so you can throw it, do whatever, unless the trigger is pulled back, it doesn't shoot. And a lot of them even have secondary or tertiary safeties where the trigger has to be, but also the grip has to be squeezed. And a lot of them have this one has a trigger safety on it. And so this part of the trigger has to be pulled as well as the rest of it. Not a great example, but anyway, the industry has kept up with compared to how it was the guns from 200 years ago, that maybe if you dropped it, it would with certainty go off. I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't know how, like, I guess rational that fear was, but at the same time, like, it's still one of those things, like, I operate sort of in worst case scenarios just at all times. Again, I don't know how healthy that is, but at the same time, like, it is a firearm, it is a weapon, and I just when it's jumping around, when I feel like it's jumping out of my hand, like around in my hand, like that's just, it's like, well, anything could happen, anything horrible could happen, and I don't want that.
Yeah, honestly, that's it. I don't think in this case that's a bad attitude to have, because at gun ranges, the more that you go, the more you realize how stupid a lot of the people are that go there. Not to, disparage people that participate in the hobby, but when you have people that don't take it seriously or aren't educated on it, and they go and do things that things that just blow your mind. And it's like, what the hell is this guy doing? And I guess that has a lot of implications. Like, okay, so my dad is a NRA pistol instructor.
Oh, what is that? So what does that mean?
So he is certified by the National Rifle Association, which I realize is a very stigmatized organization, but they do offer safety classes and training classes and things like that. And so the most basic level is you go in and you basically take like a handgun 101. And so he is certified to teach that. But I went to the gun range with my dad one time, and he was trying out one of my new guns for the first time, and it was a handgun. And he shot it, and he liked it so much he got really excited and turned around and was like, "I love this gun," and was pointing it right at my girlfriend's head.
Oh,
and
no.
we were just like, "Oh, turn the fuck around! What are you doing?"
Oh no!
He's not a dumb guy, but negligence happens even to the intelligent and the trained, and it's the sort of thing where you have to be really focused on it. And so it sounds like you were very focused on what could go wrong, which I think is a healthy attitude to have when you're dealing with something so potentially dangerous.
Yeah, I would hope so. I've never been somebody who likes violence, but I do sort of, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't like violence, but I'm not so naive to believe that life can't happen and you can't get into situations where bad things happen, because bad things happen all the time. So I am sort of that mentality of better to be prepared, especially like I said, since we have the gun. It's one of those things where it's like, well, we have it, so I should probably at least be relatively knowledgeable about this thing that we have in our house.
Were you consulted with the decision to purchase it? And I guess what was your feeling on it?
Well, he got it before we got married, so it dating at the time, so it was really more like, his gun, his thing. It was very much like the story I was told. I don't know if I heard it wrong or if this is actually accurate, but I had more issues with the fact that he said that he was like, yeah, I just went into this pawn shop and I signed 2 pieces of paper and then gave the guy $200 and he gave me a gun. That was where I was like, whoa, that it should not be that easy. That's a little bit relaxed for me. I don't know how, you're not a lunatic, but if just anybody can do that, I don't know how I feel about that.
Did he ever expand on that, or is that still as far as you know what happened?
No, that's still as far as I know what happened.
Well, so just to set your mind at ease a little bit, if I can, assuming that this pawn shop is following all of the laws, right?
Right.
Then, so the laws of who is allowed to sell firearms from a business perspective is regulated by the federal government of the United States. And the pawn shop has to be licensed as a gun, a gun retailer or dealer with there's a federal firearms license. It's called FFL. And for every firearm that they sell, they are required to have the person fill out what's called a 4473 form that goes to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives. And it used to just be the ATF, and now it's the BATFE. And so they do an extensive background check with, I'm not sure exactly what all is a part of that, but obviously criminal history, and I believe they check for involuntary commitments to institutions but it's just done with your social security number, driver's license, that kind of thing. And they do it for every single purchase with some exceptions. And in our state anyway, and I'm not sure about Texas, but I assume it's similar. If you have a concealed carry permit that you get through the state, the background check on that is considered so extensive that they kind of give you a blanket background check for future weapons purposes.
Oh.
Yeah, but if you commit a violent crime, then they revoke that permit, and therefore your background check kind of, it's not immunity, but it's like a,
Yeah.
like a skip the line at Disney World kind of thing. Then yeah,
Okay. Yeah. They
so,
just get like it's like if you get like TSA pre-checked or whatever, kind of that sort of thing.
yeah. So he had at least as thorough of a background check, I assume, as he would have done to get a job, but it's done by the federal government, so it's pretty,
Oh, okay. So yeah, it
yeah,
was there were a couple pieces of paper definitely signed, but yeah, I was like,
yeah.
okay.
He probably signed an invoice and then the 4473 form, which is, it's the same, the same everywhere.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
so concealed carry versus open carry. What are
Okay.
your thoughts about that? Because I don't know, like
Yeah.
for me, and I don't know if this is like a strictly female perspective or if this is just sort of like an all around general perspective, but like for me, if I have a gun, I don't really want everyone to know that I have a gun. So,
Yeah.
like concealed carry versus open carry, like what do you prefer? What do you think on that? I don't, like I
Yeah.
said, I
Sure.
just wouldn't want everybody to know, I don't think.
Yeah. It's probably a lot. Open carry is probably a lot more common where you are. Not a lot of people do it here. I live pretty close to the city, and so it's a lot less of a conservative area than it might be out in more of a country part in the South. Like where it's more rural farmland, that sort of thing. Honestly, I think it's a matter of personal preference. If we're talking about like, should it be allowed? I think it's fine, but generally speaking, there are a lot of times when it's not a good idea, and not because someone doesn't have the right to do it, but because the people around them freak out. And so there's people that kind of relish in that and say, well, they just need to get used to it because I'm exercising my right. And while that is true, I would like to see people desensitized and not freaking out as much about guns, because not because they're not scary and whatever, but because it's something that like everyone in our country, barring some exceptions, has the right to for their own good. Not
Mhm.
like not in a way that would be a bad thing for them, but it would be a good thing for them to be able to defend yourself, or God forbid, the whole reason that the law exists in the first place, to take up arms against the government and everything.
Right.
But that it's like that's that's the second most important right that the people that started our country could think of,
Yeah.
and a lot of people in our society, but especially around the world, are terrified of that prospect. So it's an interesting thing that people are afraid to see guns in public, and yet the people that we learn about growing up in history class were like, that is extremely important. You need to have those and be able to use them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
No, totally.
but getting back to open and concealed, most of the time I have open carried before. Like when I first got the license, I was like, this is cool as shit. I'm gonna do it all the
Well,
time.
yeah, I was
But
gonna say it kind of seems like one of those things where like, when you get a new car and you're just kind of
yeah,
like, oh, I have to like I want to go drive everywhere, but then it might
yeah,
like lose its touch a little bit up. You're like, oh yeah, I have that thing.
yeah. And there's arguments that are made by experts and armchair experts all the time where they say, oh well, if you are showing that you have the gun, you're going to be the first one that the bad guys target. But then the open carry people say, well, if I have the gun, they're not going to rob the place that I'm in because they'll see that I will be able to defend myself and the other people. And there, as far as I know, there's not science on it, because
I was
it's
gonna
such
say
a, yeah, it's such an uncommon scenario that I don't believe it's really been studied on the deterrent status versus the making yourself a target concept. And so really, I think in pretty much every case, concealed is better if you're in public. But if you're, there's lots of like farmers and ranchers and stuff that if they have a gun with them as part of their job, where they have to dispatch like dangerous animals or something, it's silly to
yeah.
think. And there's places where maybe those people, if they're not on their own property, but if they're, I don't know, in transit to it or something, that they could get in trouble because they haven't properly concealed their weapon or something like that. Or there's places where if you go to the grocery store and your shirt hikes up and your gun becomes visible, then you're suddenly breaking the law, that sort of thing. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
just
I don't. Well,
a dumb
that
thing.
sort of sounds like here in Texas we have a you can't buy liquor on Sundays rule, and
Yeah.
it's one of those. It's like you can buy beer, you can buy wine, but you can't buy liquor on Sundays. I don't
Oh,
know who
okay.
decided that was like it was like I don't, but that it's kind of one of those laws to me that it's like it's a don't buy liquor on Sundays rule. It's one of those ridiculous. It's like I lived in I'm from Chicago, and uh you can buy pepper spray and you can use pepper spray, but if you get like caught with it on like your keychain, then you like get a ticket. Like you can't.
Oh,
So it's one of those like it makes no sense. It just
do
whoever
they
decided.
are they trying to discourage women from defending themselves? Because that sounds like a terrible idea.
I haven't got a clue, but it's just one of those like so I can buy it and I can use it, but if you like catch me with it, then like I get a ticket for. I just don't understand. It's one of those like this makes no sense. I don't.
I,
It's you can't walk into a bar with a duck on your head on Tuesdays for whatever
yeah,
reason, you know.
I've heard the same thing about like lockpicks and crowbars and stuff. Like there's situations where if you are in possession of those, then they assume that you're doing something criminal. You
Yeah.
know?
And it's like based on what? I don't know. Um but yeah, I just so okay, so I guess the other big question that I really wanted to ask you, and then we
Okay.
can kind of get back to other stuff. But the other question I had to ask was, so you already said Glock was like a specific company, but is
Yeah.
that's more like the gun that you showed me, the one that I said was more like the one we have here at the house, um, versus revolvers.
Yeah.
So
So the big
what?
distinction. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, no. Like, what do you, I think it's one of those like personal preference things,
Yeah.
but like, what is your preference? Why do you have that preference? Do you?
Yeah. Sure. So the main in handguns, the main categorization difference, kind of like in cars, is like trucks versus I don't know what you call them, cars or sedans and coupes or whatever.
Yeah.
So we have revolvers, which were some of the first what we call a repeating firearm. So it's the gun is able to fire multiple times without being reloaded is the idea versus like you shoot it once. Like imagine a pirate pistol, then you have to pour the gunpowder and the ball in and jam it down and everything.
Yeah.
So we had revolvers, and now we have what's called semi-automatics.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, so semi-automatic just means that the gun reloads itself. It readies the next round in the chamber by itself through the action of shooting, and then what happens is the energy from the explosion in the chamber there forces a part of it back, and then that pulls the
Re-
next round off of a magazine, and then readies it to begin again. And then your actual automatic weapons, your fully automatic weapons, are the ones everybody's familiar with from movies and stuff, where you hold down the trigger and it continues to fire until you release the trigger. And
Oh, I wasn't aware
yeah,
that that was what that meant. Oh, okay. That's
yeah,
interesting. Had no
yeah,
idea.
yeah. So revolver and semi-automatic. You could argue that a revolver is a semi-automatic type of weapon because every time you pull the trigger, it shoots, and the same with a semi-automatic pistol. But that's just how they're. You could say specifically semi-automatic auto-loading pistol firearms is like your Glocks and everything. And
Oh,
there's all kinds of subsets in down in between those. And there's actually two main kinds of revolvers. If you think about the old cowboy guns, they had what's called a single action um, cocking mechanism. So you pull back the hammer and you shoot, and then in order to shoot again, you pull back the hammer and you shoot. Well, a lot of the revolvers now are what's called a double action, single action, where you can fire it that way, or if you pull the trigger, it's able to pull the hammer back itself through the action of pulling the trigger and then fire all in one pull. It has two stages, which is why it's called a double action. It cocks itself and then it also fires. And
that's
then
cool.
yeah,
Okay.
so
Huh.
you can still operate those with the hammer if you want to use it in a more kind of traditional way. And also by pulling back the hammer, it allows you to skip that first part of the action of of cocking it.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes the trigger pull a lot less ridiculous. Like a lot of double action revolvers will have like a 10-pound trigger pull required for the double action, and then the single action will be like 1 or 2 pounds. So it's a huge difference.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's
Cool.
basically, if you have your sights on a target, and then when you start pulling the trigger subconsciously, or
Yeah.
you can't help it, but the gun will move during the time that you're pulling it. And so the longer the pull is in the distance and the harder it is in the poundage, the more that gun is going to move and get off target. So
Yeah.
that's a big benefit of being able to change that that staging of the firing. But with your Glock type semi-automatics, it's going to be, for the most part, with this type of gun, it's going to be the same trigger pull every time. There's one exception where there are semi-automatic pistols with hammers that allow you to decock the hammer before you shoot it. First trigger pull is going to cock the hammer and then fire it, and then all the subsequent ones, the hammer gets cocked by the previous shot, sending the back. Yeah, but
okay.
You know what? I'm talking about that. I actually have one right here.
Oh, okay.
This is a CZ75.
Is that just like a light, like a flashlight for you to see better? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this is in my nightstand basically, and so it has a nice, very powerful flashlight on it that does constant on or strobing, and it has I believe 18 round capacity, which is pretty of 9mm, which is pretty pretty decent, pretty standard for like a full size handgun. But this one, you can see it has the hammer that has the same function as a lot of revolver hammers, but this hammer, you can, if you don't want to carry it with the hammer back, all that you would need to do is pull the trigger for it to fire. So you can put that hammer down and then
okay.
Up.
Yeah.
So then your first trigger pull is going to be a lot heavier, but it also makes it relatively safer if you're worried about it being fired accidentally. It's not going to fire itself, but if you were to put the gun in a position like putting it in your pants, not in a holster, where something could have the trigger be pulled, this would make it a lot harder. But yeah. Now this gun, I've swapped out the hammer lowering button for a safety button or lever.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, which I prefer, because that's, I guess, what I'm more used to, is having safety versus not safety. So, but a lot of those that have the double action like that don't have safeties, and so that kind of acts as a safety measure.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. So it's like a built-in kind of safety into, like, I don't know if that makes sense. Okay.
But
that's a little bitty one.
Yeah. So this is a Ruger LCP. It shoots a 38 special, which is, now that I think about it, it's a lot small. It's the same diameter as 9mm about, but it's a lot less powerful because it has a substantially reduced powder load and a much lighter bullet. So if you were going from 22 caliber, it would be a good intermediary that you could shoot. If you had a full-size gun you were shooting it in. In this tiny one, it's almost entirely made of plastic. Everything except this top little bit is plastic. And so it's very, very light. And it's designed for like deep concealed carry. It fits in a pocket that can hold a wallet, or your front pocket, or there's they make holsters for them to like hide between like boobs and stuff, or
I think I've seen those like in bras or whatever. Oh yeah.
And so it's really like one of the smallest automatic pistols. It's semi-automatic, but you know what I mean. And instead of like they make tiny revolvers, so they're like 2 inches long. So
I would be so scared I'd lose it by accident. If it was that small, I'd be like, it's lost. It's gone. I don't know.
Yeah, but so this one, it has an internal hammer here that you can't cock it by yourself. And so every shot is that double action shot. It has a very, very hard to pull trigger, and that's because this gun has no safeties otherwise. And so it since it's designed to be carried in anywhere, pocket, purse, whatever, it makes it a lot less likely that something's going to snag that and pull it against your wishes.
Oh, good. Because that was my first thing was if I put that in my purse, it's gonna come out of a pocket into the bottom of my purse, and then I'm gonna be rooting around, and it's gonna go off, and then it's gonna be a whole big problem.
But there's lots of modern handguns that don't have safety, don't have what you'd call a manual safety, which is like the lever on the side that you
Right.
you up and down. So like all Glocks don't have safeties, or manual safeties. They have other kinds of safeties that are supposed to serve a similar function, but without requiring you to flick it down, so that, like for police or someone in a defensive situation, they're not struggling because, your motor skills get degraded when you're in a fight or flight situation.
Right.
So it's a lot harder to manipulate things like that. So.
Oh, and I would assume, well, I would hope, I guess, that they wouldn't be able to like manufacture guns without those sort of manual safeties like you were talking about, like with the levers, if they weren't, kind of foolproof, if like they didn't, work like most of the time.
Yeah. And I would say as a mechanism, it's very reliable because it's entirely mechanical, and it's usually very simple of just like pulling something out of the way. And I've personally never had an issue with one or heard of someone having an issue with one. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but a lot of people for their either work guns or for their personal defense guns choose to have no manual safety because they, the way they train or they practice, they know that for them, they just want to be able to like draw and shoot and then carry it in a way that's safe enough to them that they're confident that it's not going to fire inadvertently.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. That makes a lot of sense then. That helps a lot. Okay. So I guess I just sort of thought of this. So I've heard, people sort of equate guns to like there's that big question of like, why do you want to have all these guns? Like you could have like two, and then like you should be, if you can't do it with two, then like you're fine. Why do you need a million guns or whatever? And somebody once explained it to me as like it's like some people like collecting stamps, some people like collecting books, other people like my thing is like guns. But I think, but then the argument is, well, books can't kill anybody, and it's but I think the best way that I have been described to it, as like my husband described it to me, was he was like, it's like a bug. So like when you get a tattoo, you pretty much figure out once you get that first tattoo if you are a tattoo person or not. And you either decide right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. You either decide right there, yes, I want more tattoos. And then you just want to like cover everything. Or you're like, yeah, no, I'm not a tattoo person. I don't. So is that is that a more accurate kind of description where it's like you just get bit by the bug, you like have one, and then you're like, oh, I want like all the parts. Like I want to try all the stuff.
Yeah. It's, I guess there's a huge difference that I would separate in guns as tools and as obviously weapons for things like soldiers and police and security forces and everything else. And then the tool aspect, I would say, is more for like people that are using them for as a tool of self-defense, and like your farmers and stuff that maybe, it's a weapon, but it's against animals, not against people. And so it's there's a huge difference there, at least in terms of like, if you think about from a society point of view, a hunter versus a soldier, even if they're using the exact same weapon, we view them very, very differently, because one is, basically murdering people, and the other is maybe protecting a farm, or just trying to feed themselves with game, things like that. And then so self-defense is another, that's a it's a like demonstrable purpose of this. Even if you disagree that people should have the right to do that, that's a very, very different thing from collecting.
Right.
And, yeah. So I draw that distinction, I guess, because when you're collecting guns as a hobby, the same way that you might anything else, it seems really messed up to trivialize it that way. But at the end of the day, these are just, they're just objects that people in our country have the right to buy, like a guaranteed protected right to buy. And so for people that are really into it, we don't stop and think about like, oh my God, this is a weapon. Like this is the same thing that people use in whatever war, or the same one a cop uses or something. It's like, okay, for me, you don't want to say it's a toy, but it in a lot of ways can be a source of entertainment, because shooting is a sport. It is, it's all these other things we said. It's a part of war. It's a part of defense. It's a part of hunting, and a part of
Well, it's in the
a lot of people's
Olympics, isn't
jobs.
it?
But
I mean, it's a
yeah,
part of the Olympics, isn't it? So
exactly, it's in the Olympics, but also obviously at a much more amateur and smaller scale, where the fact of the matter is, for millions, maybe even billions of people, shooting is fun. It doesn't have to be a violent thing. It doesn't have to be a scary thing. I acknowledge and fully respect the power that a lot of these things have, but for most of us that own them, they will never, never be used in against another living thing. For most of us, they are used against paper, or bottles, or I don't know, anything that's not alive.
Sacks of flour. I mean, yeah.
So, and that's something that's important to keep in mind, is if you're someone that doesn't understand why someone would want to have guns, well, it's it's a hobby for them, in the same way that something that you think is perfectly normal as a hobby for someone else would be freakishly weird. Like another one of my big hobbies has been, although it's difficult to tell right now during Corona, has been shaving. So there's a huge, like millions of people subculture that's really been reawakened into the methodologies of like vintage wet shaving, it's called, where you are actually like building the lather and using safety razors or straight razors. Anytime a movie with a straight razor, like the James Bond movie or Sweeney Todd, the straight razor sales go through the roof, because everybody's like, oh, I want to try that. But it's, but it's perfectly weird. I mean, my girlfriend and I go to shaving conventions every year to meet our friends who are shaving nerds,
Oh, wow. That's so interesting.
We run a business together of making shaving stuff. And it's like, to anybody that I tell about that, anybody at work or in the family, they're like, what the hell is the matter with you? You're going to, like, your friends, you shave each other, and you go and like smell each other, and it's weird. I know it's weird, and I acknowledge that most people would never be interested in it, but it has merit, because it's something that people enjoy. It does have practical.
I mean, it's no weirder than people, going to like Comic-Con, or like going to Renaissance fairs, and, dressing up and like, doing LARPing, like it's no weirder than that. So
exactly. I mean, at least we're not pretending to play Harry Potter Quidditch outside, even though we have no magical powers. Like, we're removing hair from our bodies, but so shooting, it's one of those things that, like, to a lot of people it seems strange that it would be a hobby, but at the same time, the same weapons that you're using for your hobby could also be a part of your job, or they could also be a part of your self-defense plan.
Right.
Or there's these guys who are like doomsday preppers, who collect weapons, and it's fun for them, and they practice with them, but they're also planning on the apocalypse happening and having to gun down their fellow countrymen. There's all kinds. It takes all kinds of types.
Yeah.
But like an Olympic rifle is completely impractical for any
like
sort of
deer hunting or something.
Yeah. For deer hunting or defending your home, it's like it would be wildly impractical for any of that, or for a cop to use, or a soldier or something. So you can't really lump all guns in together.
Yeah.
And say they're all this or they're all that.
So that is the end of part 2 of a 3-part series with Steven from Reddit. You can check us out on Twitter at MPWeirdo Podcast. Our email is ManicPixieWeirdo@protonmail.com. Listen to us on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And I'll let Steven tell you where you can check all of his cool stuff out.
you're interested in like cutting boards or shaving tools, my website and Instagram is Dogwood Handcrafts. SouthernWitchcrafts.com is our website if you want to check out soap and perfume and stuff.
We love you and stay kind and be weird.